Welcome to the MultiTaction MT Canvus tutorial series. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at part 1 of the menu options. There are 3 parts to the menu options within MT Canvus. The first tutorial will focus on external and canvas controls. The second will focus on those menu options that are available on the finger menu on each canvas. And the third and final section will focus on those menu options that are available on each individual object. So here we are inside of MT Canvus, and this should be familiar to those of you that have watched previous tutorials. And the focus of this tutorial will be the menu options on the right hand side. So let's begin with the very first menu option at the top, which is quite simply to pin or unpin the background canvas. Now when the pin is off, you'll notice that the canvas can move and can zoom in and out. As soon as we pin the background canvas, nothing moves, and you'll notice that it flashes red to indicate that it's actually pinned and therefore we can't move it. Moving on down to the second set of options, the very first button on this option menu will show us the entire canvas. So if I hit that now, you'll see that it brings the entire virtual canvas into focus. Now remember, when we've looked at the navigation part in the header before, we've had a small white rectangle which has represented the part of the screen we're actually seeing on our display. And in fact, if I zoom in now, so if I unpin the canvas and zoom in, you'll see that white rectangle actually moves up and down the navigation window. So it's really handy when you've got a wide area that's got a lot of content in it to quickly reorient yourself. Just hit that View Everything button and it will show you the entire virtual canvas, not just the small screen part you were looking at. The next option down allows us to toggle the header on and off, and that can be quite useful if you're trying to do a full screen presentation of something like, say, a PowerPoint file from an external PC. To be able to turn that, toggle that header on and off is actually quite useful. So it's literally a switch on and off. The next one down is the anchor. And this gives us a way of putting page markers on different parts of the canvas. Let me just turn the header back on for a moment. If you see where the white rectangle is, that's just the part of the screen we're looking at, but obviously there's content all over this canvas that we've put on through the other tutorials. I can jump around this whole canvas just using these page markers. You can see the 3 that I've defined here. So if we go to brainstorm, for example, you'll notice that the white rectangle has moved to the area that was defined originally by the anchor. If I go to the work area, it zooms back up to the top right, and if I go to the data area, it zooms to that part of the display. So let's take a quick look at how you actually define an anchor point. To get to the anchor point, we have to use the finger menu. And it's in the toolbox section. We'll cover this in section 2 of the menu options, but in order for us to demonstrate precisely how anchors work, it makes sense to create one here. So here I have an anchor point. I'll just give that a quick name. Now when I go back to my anchor list, you'll see that I have a new one here now called test. And when I hit test, we drop into this anchor area. Now there's something to bear in mind with anchor points. You'll notice that when I switched to test, the screen seemed to zoom in slightly. And that's based on how big or small you make your anchor area. If you make the anchor area smaller than the screen size, when you zoom to that anchor point, it will expand the anchor area to fill the screen. So let me demonstrate what I mean by that. Okay, just to prove the point here, I've quickly created another anchor area, but this time I've put 4 little notes into the corners, so this represents the outer points of that anchor area. Now, if we go to the anchor list, we'll see that we now have a test 2. Watch what happens when we go to test 2. Straight away, the corners expand out to fill the display. So now as a further test, we could create another anchor point. And this time we'll make it as big as the screen display. And we'll call this one test 3. Now, let's see what happens when we zoom to our 2 different anchor points. And actually, there's a bit of a giveaway already in the anchor list if you just look at the size of the post-it notes that we put in there. So test 2 zooms in and expands because that's the size that we made the anchor point window. Whereas zoom 3, or test 3, sorry, zooms right the way out. So you can actually overlay anchor points, and you can change the nature of what gets zoomed in and out based on how big you make the anchor point window. So again, the whole purpose of anchor points is a great way to navigate your way around a complex canvas with lots of content on it. And indeed, you can use this as a presentation technique. So if you want to tell a story, you can jump around these anchor points. The next item on our menu list is the canvas selection window. Now at the moment I only have the one canvas created on here, so let's create a whole new canvas. And there I have a new canvas, which I've actually switched to as a result of creating it. So if you look at the header, the title of this canvas is New Canvas, but I can switch back to the default canvas and it reloads everything. It's perhaps worth noting that MT Canvus does a very good job of storing every single thing that you do. So whenever you switch away from one canvas to another, you don't have to worry about doing saves or making sure that things are put in the right place, because Canvas will take care of all of that. So as we switch between canvases, everything gets stored and restored as needed. The next menu item is the information button. So this tells us the version and build of the software, but it also has a couple of other key indicators on here which relate to whether or not this canvas is secured and whether or not this is a demo canvas. So first of all, let's look at password protection. If I hit the password button, it gives me the option to add a password for this canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and put a password in. It's going to ask me to repeat that just to make sure I know what I put in. Okay, and now this canvas is password protected. So if I look at the canvas list now, you'll notice that it has a padlock on it, which indicates that this canvas has been locked. The other option in the information box you see here is the demo canvas option. Now, demo canvas is a way of locking a canvas so that all changes that are made after that point will not stay. It will always roll back to the original state. So here, if I enter into the demo canvas manager, this is password protected for obvious reasons, and the password is defined in the configuration file. What it gives me the option to do is convert the current canvas to a demo canvas. Once I've done that, every change that's made to this canvas afterwards will not stick. It will always roll back to the original state. And it does that when I switch canvas. So if I switch to a different canvas and then come back into this default canvas, it will always go back to how it was set up just before I converted this to a demo canvas. I'm not going to do that here because I still need to make updates to this one. But it's a really useful feature if you have a canvas that you spent a lot of time preparing and getting into a certain format and you want to make sure it stays that way. You can always turn demo canvas off later on just by going into the demo canvas manager like we did just now, put the password in and switch it back to a regular canvas, at which point updates can be made, and then again you can switch it back into a demo canvas if you want to. The final menu option on here is the exit, which is just a doorway. So if I hit that, it throws me out to the front door of MT Canvus. Now this may look different for you depending on how your system's set up. If you've got one of the other MultiTaction software products like Showcase, for example, if you'd launched Canvas from Showcase, it's likely you would end up back in Showcase rather than just into the Canvas front entry like this. The next menu option down is the Inputs menu. Every device that has a video feed that's connected to MT Canvus will appear here in this window. I've got two. One is the internal camera for the laptop that I'm using, which isn't really looking at anything. And the second is the input feed from a connected PC that's running a PowerPoint presentation. And so if I move the PowerPoint presentation on the other PC, you'll see it change here in this window. You can move and resize any object that comes in from a video feed. You can also snapshot it. And if you remove it from the canvas, you can always just pop straight back out to the inputs again and go grab it from the menu there. Just like that. The next menu down is the USB key. Depending on how your system is set up, you may have multiple USB keys connected. I've only got the one connected here at the moment. And it's just an easy way of bringing content to the system. So for example, if you've got a large video wall that's running Canvas and it's in a collaboration area, you may not have access to that area all the time, but it's easy to bring content in directly from a USB key just by plugging it in. And very often there's an external USB slot that's installed when the video wall's installed. And so you can simply drag and drop content directly onto the canvas. Equally, you can take content from the canvas and drag and drop it back into the USB as a way of getting content off the canvas. The final menu option on the bar down the side is the projector option, or video out. If I touch this menu option, you'll see that I can send either the entire video output, which is what I'm actually doing at the moment, or I can suspend that. What happens when I show the viewport is everything that can be seen in this screen, so the white rectangle in the navigation area, is actually being passed down the HDMI line from Canvas to another device. That could be a third-party video conferencing system. So if you've got Cisco or Polycom, or you've got something like BlueJeans as a web conferencing system, you can take the output from the wall or from Canvas and push that into that system. But it's much more flexible than this even. Whilst you can push the entire viewport output, you can also select individual objects and push them using the same icon, which is this small projector here. So you'll notice that the outline and the video output has now switched to this individual object rather than the entire viewport. If I go back to showing the viewport, you'll notice in the top left-hand corner there, the video output has switched to the entire screen. Same with this note here. If I want to push that content directly down the line, I can. This is a really powerful feature that allows you to use whatever part of the entire canvas you want to push content out through some other form of video stream. And that's good for sharing, for conferencing. With lots of different types of techniques you can use for this, to drive a presentation, for example. There's another way that you can use the projection output as well. It's on the finger menu, so we'll cover this in more detail in the next tutorial, but also we'll cover how to get content off the wall in a separate tutorial from that. If I choose this projection option here off the tools menu, you'll notice that it has the draggable corner to resize the window. I can put this window over any part of the canvas or any part of any object, and as soon as I hit that projection button, that becomes the area that's actually pushed down the line. There's another great technique for using this video output movable area, and that's to be able to use the canvas background as a whiteboard. So if I move this area to a different part of the canvas and expand that out a little bit, So now the area that's underneath that magenta box is being pushed down the HDMI line. Obviously there's nothing there at the moment. So if I switch to pen mode and change my color, white's a really good color for drawing on the background, then I can annotate directly onto the back, and whatever I write inside of this window will appear on the HDMI feed that leaves the wall. So again, if you're trying to drive a conversation with people that are web conferenced in to this video feed, this is a great way of doing agenda notes or items, and you can move that window around anywhere on the canvas and highlight any part of any object or the canvas itself. Okay, so just to recap, we did the first part of the menu system, which is the external and canvas controls. We talked about how to pin the canvas. We looked at how you could use navigation controls like anchor points. We looked at how you can set a password. Look at the entire virtual canvas, not just the piece you're looking at. We also looked at the inputs and how you bring live feeds onto the canvas and what you can do with them. We also looked at how you can take content from a USB stick, and we also looked at how the video output control worked. So that concludes this tutorial on the first part of the Canvas menu options. Thanks for watching.